so that was so the production company had kind of trying to do a little bit more with me, so they were nice enough to put together this kind of video. So I'll let you watch it and embarrass myself a little bit. It's kind of fun and silly, but it is what it is. And after that, I'll just show you pictures and just go through the process that I've sort of developed in the meantime, and really applying up-to-date technology, stuff they're using in Hollywood, to be able to bring this material and this stuff to another level, because you can only get so far with prosthesis. If you watch some of the older things like Walking with Cavemen, you see some of these earlier groups of Homo habilis, and they end up looking like Wolfman or something, because the foreheads aren't properly constructed. You can't articulate the mouth properly. Even when you get into Neanderthals, there's huge differences in the shape of the forehead, the slope of the forehead, the brow ridge, the clip of the chin, prognathosum, and to really accurately be able to portray that on screen. The technology is there now to do this. Yeah, let me just play this for you.
Turn a little more lights out.
Yeah, sure. And there you see some stuff in my studio, and so that's kind of fun.
Now they're full of sleep. Too many lights out. It's asleep.
It's all right.
Good night.
At least I don't have to see them fall asleep.
I am Viktor Deak. I like to make heads. I love skulls. Ever since I was a kid, I love the human form. There's just something about the structure that makes us us that really fascinates me, and it always has. I'm just kind of creating more or less a physical 3D sketch at this stage, and start to see maybe this reflection and this echo, ghostly vision starting to rise, if you will. It's a bit like playing Frankenstein.
Anatomists can only tell you the anatomically correct muscle attachments. What Victor brings to the table is his gifted insight into bringing that anatomy alive and his artistic point of view.
What I would like to do would be to maybe do an echo shape, so a half dissection, so that we can have a basis of looking at one half of the face versus the other half. Yeah, wow, even here it's very thick. It's surprisingly thick for what you would intuitively expect.
Body fat generally sits over on top of the muscle tissue, but not in the face. In the face, everything is woven in to the point of the skin, like a marionette, but with millions of strings, not just 6 or 7. But I like the adventure. I love all of that. I love the late nights and really we're feeling like this. I'm engaged, actively engaged with some huge mystery, and I get to play a part in bringing some of that mystery to light.
And this is the original CT scan as Max Planck sent it over to me.
And once I can take this apart in virtual space, I can then reposition the pieces to how it would look before it was crushed and destroyed.
It's amazing. I'm amazed by what you have done.
It's the kind of thing where I can get lost in this work sometimes for hours, 12 hours. To keep the accuracy, I came up with this sort of chart system that basically allows me to measure both calipers and whatever instruments, point A, point B. It's just amazing, amazing. You can even do this. Excited to, yeah, wait. You're looking to get ahead, huh? Yeah, I love that joke. So, just right on. Alright, here we go. Oh, wow. Oh, that's very nice, Victor. Huh. I think that fits all seriousness, I think it's the greatest story to be involved with. I just feel like it's our connection back into nature and what this can tell us possibly about our origins as a species of a sentient creature that is priceless.
So yeah, I mean, that kind of says it more or less all. I just want to show you a bunch of cool stuff. I think it's cool, and skipping ahead a little bit there. So this is some later CG stuff that I've been working on. But so this piece right here, I just kind of show it to you, some more promo, and this was all done digitally. And I've only arrived at this point because of sort of a necessity to want to make films about human evolution and kind of the technology that's available to do it. You need to really accurately do this stuff and to even work in that field. It helps to have a basis of sculpture and artistic training. Like I said, I'm kind of an unprofessional, I suppose, but I have a master's in illustration and just a very big obsession with anthropology. So everything that I've learned, I taught myself and read every paper I could find. Spent about 4 or 5 years at the Museum of Natural History just studying with the curators and the anthropologists there, and they're really nice enough to let me in and have access to like 30,000 skulls all from all over the world and the whole fossil record. So that was like a really really big thing for me, and stuff like this, you see me at the morgue and work in, it just adds to the level of professionalism, I suppose, of what I'm doing. But it's the kind of thing where I almost hesitate to call this a job, because it's like it's a bit surreal sometimes. I've been to some really cool places through this work, and it's just the kind of thing where I just at one point was like, screw it, I'm going to follow what I want to do and see where that leads me. And it took me to China last week, so that's, hey, I can't complain about that, Yes?
Other than Mudbox and Maya, are there any other programs you use to recreate CG?
Yeah, ZBrush is my favorite. I'm kind of messing around with Modo and Mudbox a little bit, but I've just found ZBrush, when I started working with it, I just got really addicted to it because, especially working with like a Wacom and pen and stylus, you start to, it hits the same parts of the brain, at least I'm feeling it, that it does when I'm physically working with clay, and it just start to get that sense that you're actually sculpting something, but right, but you're just moving pixels around and it just looks like it has depth, but it feels like it does. And I'm still learning a lot of stuff too. I mean, there's just so many pieces of software out there to really get into and kind of really understand that it'll be a while before I can say I worked in it all. But that's why I'm fortunate to work with like teams of animators, and one of the guys that did some of this stuff was actually like a lead model maker on Star Wars and designed the Death Star and closing sequence to Poltergeist. So
I was actually going to ask if you were trying to animate the face.
yeah, that's something they can do in ZBrush 4 now. You can there's pieces that so you can actually manipulate the model in sort of a time frame and then record that, and so yeah, it'll animate it. So that's more or less my next step. I mean, I've just been really kind of trying to learn the basics of just modeling stuff and rendering out and using them in stills and handing that off to animators. So I'm still kind of new in this. It's been about 3-4 years, but still in that time, there's just been a lot of other kind of sculptural work and actual reconstructions which it was like 36 hours in a day, so I could sleep for a while and then still have 24 to work, so yeah.
And do you sometimes find using this software that you have that when you have a destroyed skull, there are two or more equally plausible reconstructions?
Yeah, actually, I have something just like that to show you, because the skull I did for the Moroccan child, what's really great about working digitally is that you can offer up a relatively quick sketch of the individual without having to dedicate 400 hours to a sculpture or something in the mold making process, only for the, for it to turn around and say, have a bunch of other anthropologists go, oh no, the nose and the eyes and whatever. So but through this way, I'm able to kind of offer up something and we can talk about it and discuss it. Because I do the best I can to not work in a vacuum, because I have to be clear with the fact that it's not just my interpretation, but there's many different people that are involved with just one process and one skull. I think will generally give you a much more accurate idea of what it is. And in the end, I'm still my hand making it, but I let that hand be guided by people that probably know more than I do. And my goal isn't to really re-educate anthropologists. There's a bit too much ego on that side of the field to really, break their walls down, especially if they've been in this field for 30, 40 years. My goal is to just bring it to everybody who may care, or to kind of, help develop that understanding of our origins, to the general public, where I think it really matters, especially in our country, because it's amazing to me. I don't mean to, get too political, but that it's still a debate as to is evolution a theory or is it real? Well, yeah, of course. You just have to go past the Appalachian Mountains and between the Rockies, and evolution is just an idea. And there's whole museums dedicated to the other story of intelligent design, and museums filled with dinosaurs and children in a field, and pre-flood scenarios. So, hey, who am I to say that's not what happened? But at the same time, if you just look with your eyes and use your hands to study the fossil record, and the dates on these things aren't just made up. There's very big processes, and a lot of people go through a lot of trouble all over the world to come to a conclusion that, yeah, this thing was 1.6 million years old, and that's kind of a hard thing to argue. You can, that's fine, that's everybody's agenda, but I consider evolution, believing in evolution is about as valid and as logical as believing in gravity. And I don't believe in gravity, but it holds me to the ground, and yet here I am not flying off the earth. And if you're going to say that gravity doesn't exist, then evolution is sort of the same process in a sense that it's just a chain of events of survival of DNA, and just being passed on from generation to generation so that the children can eat and grow up to spread their DNA. And but it never has anything to do with generally one thing being better than the other. Maybe in that area of the world, people develop into a certain way, or animals develop into a certain way to survive there. But in those that can't make that change, they're not here anymore. So basically, when I started this stuff, I decided to, at one point I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I don't know. And so I was like, I'm going to go to school in New York City, and I wanted that. And so I went to School of Visual Arts, and while I was there, I would just basically stay at the studio. I was living in Connecticut, but I would come in from Monday to Friday, sleep on the floor of the studio and on a couch, or whoever let me crash out. But I would go to the Museum of Natural History almost on a weekly basis, and I would just sit in the hall, drawing and painting, and maybe somebody will see me. And probably about 7 months into that, somebody did. And I was working on a painting, and a very kind woman walked by, Lori Pendleton Thomas, and she's like, hey, that's a nice piece, and do you have any other sketches? And do I? And I pulled out this big book, and just filled with anatomy and hominids, and she came back, and she was like, well, sit right here, and I'll be back with somebody that you should talk to. And she came back a little while later with Gary J. Sawyer, who ended up being my mentor. We talked for about an hour in the hall, and he invited me back the next day. And I said, I'll be there at 7.